Hello and welcome to the Star Wars Guys YouTube channel where the Force is family. I am Master Paul, joined of course as always by my friend Ian the Headless Guitarist, and I'm honestly surprised you weren't riffing that intro along with it.
I love that music. I was itching to, but I decided not to this time.
Well, if you're worried about it picking up over the stream, it wouldn't have, because anytime I play any of those clips, it automatically mutes everyone, so
Oh,
you wouldn't
okay.
have had anything to worry about.
Okay.
But anyways, I want to go ahead and say hello right off the bat in the chat to Mary Lanning. Thanks for joining, and thank you for being the first like. I greatly appreciate that. Everyone should follow in her example and like this stream. So, with that, we are going to go ahead and get into the 4 episodes we're talking about tonight for Star Wars Rebels. We started covering Rebels last week, and we did the first 2 episodes, which is the two-parter Spark of Rebellion story. So, now we're into season 1 properly, and we're talking about 4 episodes. Those 4 episodes are Droids in Distress, Fight or Flight, Rise of the Old Masters, which I'm just going to go ahead and say now is probably my favorite of this whole block, and Breaking Ranks. So, Ian, what did you think of these 4 episodes?
Well, not my favorite section of Rebels. I have to agree with you. I think Rise of the Old Masters is probably going to be my favorite of those 4. However, I'm not saying the other 3 are bad. I don't consider them like filler. Like they're above filler, but they're not some of my favorites. Especially not for the Rebels. The later seasons we'll get into when other people appear, if you know what I mean. But no, they're cool. They're cool. Actually, I have to confess, I started watching them last week after,
and I caught you doing it.
Exactly, and I got carried away and started watching like the rest of the season, and now I'm in halfway through season 2. So
Hey, that is perfectly fine, man.
that is how.
Yeah. Just keep in mind, I'm moving at a much slower pace.
I know. I got a little carried away.
That's okay. But. So, anyways, my thoughts on them. Overall, there wasn't an episode here that I outright hated, and they all did their job very well. But like I said, some really still kind of gave me the impression that this was more of a kid's show than Clone Wars ever was. Would you say that's about right, Ian?
Yeah, it's the way the characters move and the looks on their faces. Sometimes they're if it was live action, you could say they're like overacting, which is what happens a lot of times in something like Sesame Street or something like that. So yeah, there's definitely some more childish elements to it than in comparison with Clone Wars. I wouldn't say it's out and out a kid's show, but compared to Clone Wars, it definitely is a little more lighthearted and childish.
Right. But at the same time, when this series gets serious, as it does in Rise of the Old Masters, it does it very well.
Yeah,
and I get it
does.
that there will be more serious episodes coming in the latter half of the series, but there's still some good stuff to be had here in this portion of the show. And real quick, also, Mary Lanning says, Happy St. Patrick's Day. Indeed, Happy St. Patrick's Day. For anyone watching this that's going out drinking, please be safe getting home. Don't drink and drive. In fact, call someone if you need help. There's your weekend safety brief. All right, so let's go ahead and get into Droids in Distress. So this episode, we learn more about Zeb's backstory and more about his species as a whole, actually, the Lasat. And we learn that his planet got taken over by the Empire and the natives were massacred by these ion disruptors. And we also learned that Agent Callus, the guy with the weird beard that we saw in the first two episodes, he was there and not only was in charge of that attack, he took great pleasure in destroying the Lasat people and also ended up stealing one of their most sacred weapons to use for himself. So what did you think of that revelation?
I thought it was a pretty cool circle around bringing things together. Um,
Mhm.
I especially like the concept of the ion disruptors. I don't think they should have destroyed them. I think they should have just took them back on the ship and kept them because they could have absolutely used those things. There's some seriously cool weapons.
And I think the only reason that they didn't was mostly just for moral reasons. Like Zeb, we know for sure would not have been able to even be around those things given how traumatic it was when he saw them last used.
Yeah, that's true, I suppose. But definitely a cool weapon. One of my favorite, I should say, um, shooter weapons in Star Wars.
Absolutely. And real quick, we've got another panelist coming on. We have, excuse me, Darth Nader, who is right now just a black screen. Can you hear it? There you are. And you muted.
No, I'm not.
There you go. You're a little quiet though.
Hello.
That's
That's
better.
better. That's
Yeah.
better. So you haven't missed much. We just got into the discussion of the first episode, but I'll real quick get your take on all four, which are Droids in Distress, Fight or Flight, Rise of the Old Masters, and Breaking Ranks. What do you have to say about those, Nate?
Well, definitely, I can tell with Droids in Distress, they were trying to sit there and make some connections, get a good strong footing. What's the easiest way to do that? Bring in people
Mm-hmm.
from an already established part of the franchise. Old Masters, I thought it was a really interesting concept to talk about how you wanted to sit there and give up your Padawan for someone who's more qualified, and we later learn why he feels he's unqualified to take on an apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
And the other two, I'll kind of save those for as we go.
Exactly. And in talking about droids in distress, the only thing we've touched on was how we learn more about Zeb and his culture's history and how tragic it was when they were wiped out by the Empire with those ion disruptors, and how Agent Callus gets some backstory too because of it, because he was there authorizing the attack.
Yes. And it makes him all the more redeeming throughout the series because of
Mm-hmm.
this backstory.
Exactly. Because when I first saw Agent Callus in Spark of the Rebellion, all those years ago when I first saw this, he was kind of forgettable to me. But then I saw him in this episode and I'm like, "Oh, okay. So he's got a little bit more to him." And real quick, the final person for the panel has come on. Mando on Fire,
Mm,
what's up?
oh, nothing much. You know what one of my friends says, nothing $1 million and something else they can't fix.
Of
But
course.
I'm not gonna say what that is.
I gotcha. So
Gunpowder?
so
Hmm?
Gunpowder?
No, a cold one.
Yes. And real quick, hello in the chat to Resolute Rebellion, who says, Happy St. Patrick's Day, all. Great day to get your green on. I'm actually not
And
wearing green. I am wearing yellow, but
give me a minute here.
oh
I'm
well.
gonna have to get green on for a minute.
Come on, I've got the old school baby parf green on.
That's right. You should have a shirt of the same shade, Michael.
That's not what I was thinking of.
But anyways, you haven't missed much, Michael. We only just started talking about the first episode. But just like I did with Nate, I'll get you to give your overall thoughts on the 4 episodes, which again are Droids in Distress, Fight or Flight, Rise of the Old Masters, and Breaking Ranks.
Well, I definitely think that these are pretty good episodes to start off with, especially just because, I mean, we had already gotten one introduction to the series, and I guess the very first episode pretty much throws you right in the action. And
Yeah.
I guess what it does well is that it actually pretty much just introduces a lot of the main cast of the characters that we're going to be seeing.
You're right. And as far as the first episode we were talking about, the only thing we've touched on so far is how we and real quick, hello to Nova Vaughn in the chat. What's up? The only thing we touched on was how in this first episode we learn more about Zeb and his people's dark history, how they were wiped out by the Empire by those ion disruptors, and how Agent Callus was there authorizing that attack. So what did you think about that revelation?
I really can't say much on it other than you kind of see that even though this kind of show clearly has Disney's watermark on it, it's not shying away from Clone Wars totally being a kids show, if you get what I'm saying. Especially since it's dealing with, in this case, PTSD.
That is true. And it's funny you say that, Michael, because that's another thing that I mentioned when it was just me and Ian on here, is that there were a couple of these episodes, most specifically Fight or Flight for me, that still kind of gave me that feeling of this feels more childish than Clone Wars did. Or I guess the better way to say it is it feels more like a Disney product compared to the Clone Wars. But at the same time, you just pointed it out, there's still good stuff to be had here in this show. And even within these 4 episodes, we see that that is the case. So moving on with this episode, we also see R2-D2 and C-3PO make an appearance. And how do you guys think they were used? What do you guys think of that?
I don't know. I feel like their attempts to use R2-D2 and C-3PO in this show anyway seem like a waste of character because they don't really, to me, they don't really do, I mean, much of anything substantial, I guess. They just, to me, they're just a less successful attempt on Disney's part to bring back some familiar characters. I think the bringing back of Maul and Ahsoka and Vader later on and all these other people were much more successful and more, I guess, rewarding than seeing C-3PO and R2-D2, especially since they're on Minister Tua's side, and at first anyway.
Well,
and
yeah, at first.
It seems less successful to me, but that's just me.
Understandable. I definitely there was a couple choices that they made with specifically C-3PO that were a little bit off-putting for me. Most notably the fact that he calls out to the Empire for help, but at the same time I can give that grace from the sense of perhaps he was just doing that as part of his being undercover as part of the Empire.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. And real quick, hello to the legendary Tron. What's up? What's your hot take, Nate?
3PO was not doing that as part of cover. Think about it. It has been mentioned several times that 3PO has had his memory wiped. And think about his personality. He's going to tell the plan. So he was legitimately trying to call the Empire and on the Empire's side the entire time.
I mean, I do like C-3PO as a character. He's one of the most classic Star Wars characters out there, but let's be perfectly honest, he can be quite cowardly at some times, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he can.
Michael, anything to add?
Yeah, because if you actually paid attention to the way that he was talking to R2 about the mission, he actually had no idea that there was a quote unquote secret mission while they were on that.
Let's be honest, that was a throwback to A New Hope. You know, the whole secret mission? What plans? I'm not getting in there.
I mean, even still, it's obvious how oblivious C-3PO can be, memory wiped or not.
That is very true. So I perhaps not quite as much so, but I definitely agree with you, Ian, where it was cool to see them again because they are along with Luke, Han, and Leia the face of Star Wars, but they could have been used a little bit better here.
What about Chewie?
Okay, fine, Chewie too. I'm sorry. But then again, they did forget to give Chewie the medal in A New Hope.
That's why I made that reference.
Exactly.
I mean, Leia hated his guts, so she wasn't about to give him a medal.
Will someone get this big walking carpet out of my way?
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
she wasn't about to give him a medal.
And so, aside from all of that, we just get more of the crew of the Ghost working together and interacting with each other, and you get the sense that they are truly a family more than they are a team. And I think that's probably the one thing that I would say is my favorite thing so far about this whole show is the interactions between the crew of the Ghost. It does not feel scripted or forced in any way. It feels natural. What do you guys think?
Yeah, to an extent. Yeah, I see where you're coming from. Like I said last week, I do find Sabine and Hera annoying at times. I don't know, but other than no, I get what you're saying. It is a family of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nate, you looked like you had something to say.
It reminds me of The Office and a family at the same time.
Yes. Michael, anything to add to that?
Not really. Although I do appreciate the cleverness that they have, especially when it comes to executing the plan. And I guess that's really all I've got so far, as well as Ezra slowly getting his way to becoming Jedi trained, as impatient as he may be about it right now.
That is true, because I'm pretty sure in this episode we do see Ezra's first intentional use of the Force pushing Callus away from being about to execute Zeb. Like, if I remember correctly, any use of the Force that he did in Spark of the Rebellion was just him sensing something and accidentally opening the holocron.
Well, he had the force jump, right? With going to save the
Yes, he did.
Wookiee child, and wasn't that in
Yeah.
Spark? Was that in
Yes.
Spark of the Rebellion too? Right? Part
I don't
two?
know that
Yeah.
that was a Force jump. That could have been just a normal jump.
Well,
I
I want to
think
be
so,
in the
because
shape he's in because that's pretty
Yeah.
crazy.
I think
That
so,
is true.
because that short king right there is athletic as he looks. There's no way that he was able to jump 3 times his own height.
All right, I'll concede that point. So so one last thing that at least I can think of to talk about this episode, something that I didn't really mind that much the first time I saw it, but nowadays kind of just doesn't come across well to me. I'm not the biggest fan of the Vizago character. And I only say that because to me, he reminds me of a dollar store version of Hondo, who, yes, I know we will see later on.
Shots fired. Dollar store Hondo.
Yes, I said it.
But let's admit, Hondo is the
Nah,
goat.
if anything, he looks like he came from Wish. Dollar Store has higher quality than that kind of stuff.
If that's the case, why don't we just go ahead and go with Alibaba?
You know what that makes me think of, Michael? Look, Dad, it's the good Kush. This is the dollar store. How good could it be?
Or maybe that one fantastic meme that says, "Hey mom, we want this," and then the mom's like, "Well, we already have this at home," and then it's this at home.
I'm gonna make a meme of that later. But in all seriousness, though, what do you guys think about the character Vizago? Is he all right, or do you think
He's
he?
there. He really doesn't add anything to anything right now.
Yeah,
He's not the best thing to happen to Star Wars, but
far from the
he's
worst.
yeah, far from the worst.
Okay. Ian, anything to add?
Worse than Anakin, better than Rey.
That is very specific. But I
Not the
but I
best,
do
not
ag-
the worst.
but I do agree with that. So to close out this episode, and we didn't do this for Sparker Rebellion, so we'll make sure to do that. But what score would you guys give this episode, Droids in Distress? Give it a score out of 5. I'm gonna go 3.5 out of 5 for this one for me.
I'm going at 3.75.
Okay, Ian.
I'm going 2 3/4.
Okay, and Nate.
3.14.
3.141592. Repeating.
Yes.
Okay, so he gives it a pie out of 5. Okay.
Easy as pie.
And then real quick while I'm thinking about it, since we didn't do it for Spark of the Rebellion, counting those 2 episodes as one, what are you giving those out of 5? I'm going 4 out of 5 for Spark of the Rebellion.
I'll go 3 for both of them.
All right. Michael and Nate?
4.5.
Okay.
I'm concurring with Nate.
All right, so about a 4.5, about a 4 out average on that one. And Resolute Rebellion gets the joke. He says, "There's always room for pie." All right.
As long as it's
ti-
chocolate.
I agree.
What about a Costco pumpkin pie with a little bit of whipped cream?
That's fair.
I can't. After all the pumpkin pie eating contests at Luray High School, I am not a big fan of pumpkin pie anymore.
Weakling.
So for context, for those that don't know, me, Michael, and Nate all graduated from the same high school, and every year around Thanksgiving, at least when I was still there, I don't know if they still do this, but they would do
doing it at some point.
Yeah, they would do pumpkin pie eating contests where where it's one person from each class, freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior, would be sat down at a table, and a big pumpkin pie would be put in front of them, and they had to see who could eat it the fastest with no hands. So they would literally take a trash bag and put it over you, have a cutout so your head could go through it, and you literally went face first into a giant pumpkin pie and tried to finish it first. I participated, I lost, but every single time they do this, I wish I was making this up. Every single time, someone always threw up the pie back into the pie crust. Every single time. So that is why I can never eat pumpkin pie. I take that back. I will sometimes eat pumpkin pie, but I do not enjoy it even close to as much as I used to.
I appreciate that information, PJ. I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
You're welcome, Ian. Resolute Rebellion says, so eat it the normal way teenage boys eat anyways. Fair enough. And Phil the Kraken with
Phil,
his...
get in here and experience the shenanigans of the proverbial E4 Mafia.
Yes. And Nova says Costco pumpkin cheesecake is better. I've never had pumpkin cheesecake. I would like to try that, though.
I don't think I've had that either.
If it's
All
from
right, let's
Costco, it's bound to be good.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, let's get back. Let's get off the topic of dessert and get to the episode Fight or Flight. Now, for me personally, this is probably the weakest one of this block of 4. Not that it is bad. You get some really good interactions between Ezra and Zeb, but it's, to me, it's the most childish one of this block, where they're sent out on this bonding mission where they have to collect supplies and find this one specific fruit that Hera asks for that's hard to find on Lothal, and in the process they steal a TIE fighter. So, like I said, nothing wrong with that premise at all. It's a very fun premise, but it's also, in my opinion, the most childish. What do you guys think?
Oh, I 100% agree. It's the most childish of the episodes, but that's also what makes it the funniest of all the episodes, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I definitely agree that. Like, the one scene that comes to mind when you say that is seeing Zeb fly the TIE fighter with his feet because he's hanging upside down trying to catch Ezra.
Yeah, I mean, they have an autopilot switch. Come on.
True.
Oh, but
And
come
by the
on,
way,
it's more fun to
hello
do.
to Leia Rose. Thanks for joining.
So
And
the part about the TIE fighter being stolen, I thought that actually that was kind of cool. I thought, oh, okay,
it
well
was.
but how he did it, oh my gosh, how it actually happened was so just childish. Because he's like 5 feet in front of stormtroopers and they still can't hit him. I mean, come on. What?
That was the start of the great Disney Stormtroopers Can't Hit crap.
Exactly. So why are they there? They're just there for, oh my gosh, the bad guys are here. Well, it doesn't matter. You can stand there and it doesn't matter.
And again, just as a reminder, the point of stormtroopers not being able to hit anything in the first movie wasn't that they sucked at aiming. It's that they were intentionally letting go Luke, Han, and Leia so that they could track him to Yavin 4. And these days, people seem to misunderstand that and be like, oh, duh, stormtroopers can't aim. Yeah, they can. Stormtroopers are actually the special forces of the Empire. Andor proved that. But
it just depends on how it suits the story. If Disney wants them to miss, just like, oh, he's gonna steal this thing, so the stormtroopers have to miss every single shot. Like, okay, well, they're gonna miss every single shot.
It's a little bit of plot armor.
Yeah, yeah, just a little bit.
Anything to add to all of that, Michael? All right, real quick. Hello to, forgive me if I say this wrong, Hephaestus, I think. But anyways, in spite of all of that silliness, there is still one solid, serious moment in this episode that I did like. That being that there's this one farmer that goes into the city to sell his produce that Ezra, his parents were good friends with, who ends up getting his land taken by force by the Empire. And with their stolen TIE fighter, Ezra and Zeb decide to rescue them. And seeing the Empire just come in here and the farmer trying to be like, I'm not changing my mind. I'm not selling my land to you. And then the Imperial officer being like, who said anything about selling it? And then they just take their cannon and blow up the dude's house. That is just ruthless.
So the thing I disliked about that was there was no motive stated for the Empire. I mean, Yeah, we know they're cool. They're just going to do stuff like that. But to me, it seemed a little forced. I would have liked more of a reason to be stated for that. But I get what you're
Well,
saying. It is a little bit more of a serious turn for an episode that's otherwise pretty lighthearted.
over time, we do get more of that reason exposed, but I don't want to give up too much the later seasons.
Okay, that makes sense then. Michael, do you have any insight into why they might have wanted that one farmer's land?
Well, I guess other than the plot point of possibly doing a Robin Hood type of thing, I really can't say just because at this point the Empire is just being bad just to be bad.
Yeah, which from a writing standpoint is just kind of lazy, in my opinion.
Right. That's what I was saying.
Yeah. But like I said, make no mistake, I do not hate this episode. This is a very lighthearted episode. It's just these days I find myself wanting more serious Star Wars, and as much as I hate to admit it, I think Andor might be to blame for that. But anyways, score out of 5 for this episode. I'm going to go 2.5 for me. Michael, what about you?
I agree.
Okay. Ian?
I'm going to go 2.
Okay. And Nate?
I'll go 2 3/4 because got a little bit of the rose tinted goggles on.
Okay. Fair enough. And real quick, Hephaestus says, perfect pronunciation. Thank you guys. Oh, no problem. All right. Now for Rise of the Old Masters. And this is an amazing episode because we finally get to see what the Grand Inquisitor is like on the battlefield. So the premise of this one is that Kanan is frustrated with how Ezra is receiving his Jedi training, and they hear a rumor that Master Luminara Unduli survived Order 66, and Kanan thinks it would be a good idea to rescue her from Imperial incarceration so that she could be a better master for Ezra. Only to get there and find out that it was all a trick set by the Grand Inquisitor to lure Jedi there who were hoping to rescue Luminara, because Luminara had been dead the whole time. So let's get this out of the way right now. This is the first time we ever see an Inquisitor lightsaber. And we see at first that he uses it just a single-bladed mode, and by the way that it's only in half circle mode, it makes you think at first that, oh, he's just got an extra handguard on there. But then he turns it into a saber staff, turns the hilt into a full circle, and starts spinning it. So what did you guys think when you first saw that?
I thought it was one of the coolest lightsabers I'd ever seen.
Really?
Yes. Yes, I did.
Okay.
I actually think one of the coolest forms of it is when it's single with a half circle as a guard.
Mm-hmm.
It looks a lot like a fencing sword to me like that, and I really, really like that look.
I agree. Nate, any insight?
So of course it's no secret here that any of us sit there and deal with firearms, and it's no secret my opinions of certain types of optics and sights. Like I know Michael has a holographic thing, but I've got happen to be playing with these two things for a while. These are basic iron sights. You cannot kill them. They do not go wrong. They're reliable, about like a single-bladed lightsaber. You start adding
True.
batteries and everything, and spinny features and all
Yeah,
that extra
because
stuff. It's
there's always
unreliable.
a time where
Yes.
Charlie might set off an EMP and you gotta flip up that rear side aperture and start stacking bodies.
Well, I
like
mean,
he's
not only
hanging
that,
hay bales, or stuff like that.
but say you never sit there and run into that issue of EMP. Battery is going to go dead at some point, and chaos theory, it's always going to be at the most inopportune time.
True. So, and without spoiling what happens later in the season finale, we've already seen what happens with trying to make the lightsaber more, I guess for lack of a better term, advanced, because look at Darth Maul's first lightsaber. Obi-Wan straight up cuts that thing in half in their duel. And so, yeah, you definitely want to keep a... It's cool to have the extra features, but at the end of the day, you got to rely on just the basics. Real quick, Ian, this one's for you. Hephaestus says, shameless request, can the headless guitarist play a little bit
Oh,
of the
man.
Imperial March? Asking for a friend, the Forces family, smiley face.
Oh man, I don't even know. Let's see. Where am I? Here we go. I think that's about all I know. I'm in the wrong tuning.
That is good. That's good enough.
I feel like
And
I need a practice pad with get some of those fivelets in there.
Yes. Resolute Rebellion says, always keep it simple with the lightsaber.
So while we're on the subject of his lightsaber, can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
As cool as I think it is simple as anything to just stick your blade in the center where the circle's going around and just jerk up on the thing and just...
I can't think of a single example of that actually happening, and that certainly didn't happen later this season.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's cool, but is it practical? No, not really. That's why I think my favorite. That's why one of the reasons my favorite iteration of it is with it's just the half circle with the single blade. It seems to be the most practical, and it looks cool too. So
yes, and real quick, can Paul play a banjo yet? I've never even thought. Okay, I've tried to play a banjo before, but gave up on it because at the time I was not able to do the finger picking style that you need to play a banjo right. However, Ian can play banjo.
I can, yes.
So, Michael, you haven't really given your thoughts yet on the Inquisitor style lightsaber. What's your thought?
Well, I definitely think it's very versatile just because that's pretty much what the Inquisitor is, not just in the way he carries himself, but he also in the way he fights, where you see in the duel, as you probably saw this last stream, he can make himself be the ruthless fighter that Darth Maul is, but also play the game of mind screw. And I'm using the censored version for our family audience, but Nate knows exactly what I'm talking about. He certainly knows how to play the game of mind screw like Vader does.
Mm-hmm.
But also he has the finesse and almost art style way of fighting as Dooku does. And the only thing that he's really missing is something from Palpatine, and the only thing I can really think of are his eyes, because this might just be the way that Powans are, but if you look at the Sith eyes and then his eyes, his are far scarier.
That is true. And yet another detail that they didn't get right in Kenobi, but that's beside the point. Now I want to show you guys this. I saw what you said in the chat, Michael. I'll give you your chance to say goodbye. But before you go, I want to show you guys this. Do you guys remember when this toy was released from Star Wars?
Ironically,
yes.
We've seen a spinning lightsaber before.
Huh. That's kind of cool, actually.
It is. So it's literally the same concept. Well, as far as the spinning goes, where you attach two lightsabers to this wheel, hold a button down, and it will spin it. Mm-hmm. Clearly meant to simulate the super helicopter mode that Grievous does. Oh, by the way, spoilers for season 2. But I always wanted to get like 2 of those just so I could have just so I could go double helicopter mode with him. I never did though.
Yeah. Yeah.
CH-47 Chinook. Interesting.
Yes. But before we move, go ahead.
I was gonna say one more thing, Michael. Before you go, I think the Inquisitor does have something from the Emperor. He has that taunting persona at times.
Yeah, that's what I was
That's
thinking of with Vader.
That seems to me to be Vader seems to be like more calculating to me.
Yeah.
So I think the Inquisitor has that aspect of Vader, calm and calculating and plotting, whereas at times especially in battle, the Grand Inquisitor has that Palpatine flair of being just taunting and kind of teasing his opponents. So I think he has something from Palpatine also, but
I could see that. So you said in the private chat, Michael, you've got to go here in about a couple minutes. So I'll go ahead and give however much time left to you. Go ahead and talk about whatever you want from these last 2 episodes.
Well, I would say the only thing that I can really think of is I think that this is the best way to officially introduce the Inquisitor, just because of one scene in particular where you see how Ezra's puny little slingshot hits the Inquisitor, and he just takes it. Like, he doesn't flinch or anything. He just says, "Is that really the best you got?" And also, for the next episode, I think it also kind of humanizes some of the stormtroopers, because once they become aware of what sort of the Empire is doing, or at least aware of it from a different perspective, let's just say, they will pretty much rebel against them, even if one of them is going to stay behind and look for his sister. And I do find that this is pretty interesting because it does bring me a lot of memories. Speaking of which, today does mark 1 year of me graduating.
Yeah,
awesome.
It is. I remember we were down in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and we visited you for 2 days, once on family day, once on your graduation day.
Yes.
And on that graduation day, we did a stream from Fort Jackson, me, you, and John. You guys can go still. In fact, I'm gonna go back and find it right now. I'm gonna go back and find it
of course,
and put
the
a link
tip-off
to
made
it.
a little bit. We also sang the Army song that he says, but of course I'm saying this as someone who believes him because he knows his stuff. What was the original song that is now
The caissons go rolling around.
Okay, the caissons go rolling along.
Go rolling along. There we go.
And that was for artillery or something, is that right?
Yep. Because the caisson is that box that guys were sitting on that was immediately behind the horses that had all the ammunition, and then of course you had the cannon being towed behind that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't too much.
Yeah, you do. So anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and go because I've got some stuff to work on as well as a few things to do.
Okay. And real quick, I'm putting it in the chat now. If anyone wants to see a stream that we did a year ago to the day where Michael is in his pinks and greens and has no hair. Yep, and bald. Here's the link, and I hope you guys enjoy it. But thank you, Michael, for popping on, and you have a good night, okay?
See ya.
Stay out of trouble.
See you, Michael. I'll text you a picture of something later.
I got no time for trouble.
Oh, yeah, by the way, Nate, you're going to want to see this too, what Ian has to show.
Ooh.
Let's just say it has to do with a very explosive type of music that all 3 of us like.
Pew, pew, pew.
Well, speaking of which, my bank account's now somewhat lighter because of another thing I'm doing.
A worthy cause, my friend.
Yes.
So, getting back to the real quick, Hephaestus says the Kazons, weren't they in Star Trek Voyager? I don't know because I haven't seen Voyager yet, so we'll find out when we get there on Tuesday Night Trek. But back to the episode. One other thing that we learn new in this episode is we are introduced to this weird flying stingray species that somehow falls in love with the ghost's shuttle because it emits this one frequency that they consider a mating call. And I can't help but wonder if those are the famous Purgil that I keep hearing about that eventually take Thrawn and Ezra into the unknown regions.
No. Nope, not to my knowledge. And the Purgil that I remember look very different. Though ironically, on the wavelength being something that would be in tune with a mating call or having an effect on creatures, there's actually some really interesting stuff of why the U.S. military and even many world militaries now will only use sonar in very particular situations because it's been known to affect the patterns and communications of whales. Imagine there's probably other similar techniques that have also been used on bats. And I remember my dad talked about when he was stationed in Turkey that one of the radars would literally just fry birds.
I believe that. Mary Lanning says, I just changed my profile pic. I see that, and you changed it to my favorite lightsaber fight of all time, Luke versus Vader in Return of the Jedi. So, let's see. Is there anything else about... Actually, let's go back a little bit and talk about this. The trap itself, how basically they lured in Jedi using a hologram of Luminara being sent to execution, only to then, when they get there, see that she had been dead a long time. What did you guys think of that?
It's funny. I have seen this series through, I think, two or three times now. I can't remember exactly, but it's been a while since I last watched it. So I was watching this episode with new eyes. I had forgotten if she was still alive or not. So I was like, wait, they're going here. Is she alive? I don't remember that part. So that was kind of cool, but it's it seemed a lot more realistic that the Inquisitor is just using it to bait in who he can and then just kill him off.
Yes. Nate, what do you think?
That's a bit morbid tactic to use a body to sit there and constantly attract people, but it's not that unusual from what I imagine. There's probably somewhere in history, I'd have to look it up, where somebody's done something that weird and that stupid.
You could honestly say it's like the reverse of a scarecrow.
Yeah.
And I like the line that the Inquisitor says after he makes himself revealed and it's revealed that it's a trap. He says, Master Luminara died with the old Republic, but her bones continue to faithfully serve the Empire. That is just cold-blooded right there.
Mm-hmm.
Especially as we learn about the Inquisitor's previous job.
Yes, which, again, spoilers for Season 2.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, they managed to make it out, and at the very end, Ezra basically admits, I don't want a different master, I want you. You are the person, the Jedi that I've made this connection with, and I don't want anyone else. And in response to this, Kanan gives us a little bit more insight into the philosophy of do or do not, there is no try. Basically saying, I'm no longer going to try to train you. I'm going to actually train you. And I will either succeed or I will fail. But no more just simply trying. So Do you think that was the initial lesson behind that Yoda meant for Luke in Empire Strikes Back?
I think the original meaning for Yoda's saying was be decisive and don't overthink things. If you're gonna do something, just do it and don't hold back while you're doing. You know what I mean. Dedicate yourself to something. Be decisive about it. I think that's what he was saying. But
Fair
I'm no
enough.
Jedi master, so
No, you're a headless guitar master.
well, yeah, the master did not need to be in there.
Quick, play the most complicated thing you can. Okay, there you go. By the way, Nate, that song is called "Wishing Well."
Ironic.
It is. Anyways, what about you, Nate? Your insight into Kanan's interpretation of "do or do not, there is no try."
I'm going to be honest. I think Yoda purposely made that quote open-ended because there's many different ways that some quotes can be utilized and give equally valuable lessons.
Mm-hmm.
And when you've been a Jedi for how long? What, almost a
Oh,
1,000 years,
not
almost a millennium? What, 900
yeah.
some?
He was 900 when he died.
Yeah, all right, so 800 and some change at the point that he was training Kanan.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling he had pretty good ideas that it could mean multiple things and be used in multiple different lessons.
I could definitely see that too. And I like how I do agree with you that the expression "do or do not, there is no try" is intended to be open-ended, at least in The Empire Strikes Back, because really it could be both Yoda's original intention and the way Kanan interprets it that makes that expression work, be it I'm either going to succeed or I'm going to fail, or being like I'm going to do it or I'm not going to do it. Like in Karate Kid, for example, when Mr. Miyagi asks Daniel if he's ready to learn karate, and at first Daniel says, "I guess so." And Miyagi takes him aside and says, "Listen, either your answer needs to be yes or it needs to be no, because you can walk on either the left side of the road and be safe or walk on the right side of the road and be safe, because if you walk in the middle, you get squished like a grape." Hold on one second. Jonathan just came in here.
Ironically, the dual meanings of a, what do I want to say, quote or food for thought reminds me of something I learned in percussion many years ago involving marching drumsticks.
And what's that?
I don't know if this phrase is PG enough. Let me sit there and put it in the group chat or here on the back end.
All right, I gotcha. So while you're doing that, we'll go ahead and give our final scores. I'm giving this one 4.5 out of 5. What about you, Nate?
Yeah, I agree. A 4 out of 5.
Okay, and Ian?
I'm gonna go 4. I think it was solid.
All right, I can definitely. So we average out about 4.25 since I gave it 4.5. All right, so the last one we're going to talk about is Breaking Ranks, and this one has Ezra going undercover as a new student in the Imperial Academy, receiving stormtrooper training along with a bunch of other kids. And this is something we've never seen before in any sort of Star Wars. Basically, what sort of training do you have to undergo to be a stormtrooper? So the actual training, by the way, Mary gives it a 6 out of 10. Okay, fair enough. The actual training that we see involves them going through 3 different levels of an obstacle course where they have to use these floating platforms that go horizontal and vertical to climb their way out of a pit. And as far as the actual training that we see, what did you guys think of that?
So, problem
Uh-huh.
with that is that
I feel like they just read it.
yeah, I just read it.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem with this training is that it is so intense that the stormtroopers that are depicted in the episodes could not do it by any stretch of the imagination.
So basically, the only way to succeed is to be force sensitive, almost.
Well, right, but then you get a couple other kids that were actually not too bad, like the guy that wore the helmet with the green insignia on top.
Mm-hmm.
He always kind of finished like third or fourth. You get people like that, and then you know they're all the cadets seem kind of like headstrong and confident, and then you look at the stormtroopers and it's like, oh, okay, with that went out the window when they put on the white armor. uh,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So it's yeah, it's a
Hold on. This just now hit me. What if, taking it at face value, it is stormtrooper training, but what if there was ulterior motives behind it? Because we see later on that one of the officers in charge of this training is in contact with the Grand Inquisitor, who is looking for children with, quote, special talents. And again, Ezra's part of this, and he's force sensitive. So perhaps this test really was to try and make more Inquisitors.
I actually kind of agree with that because if I remember, another one of the cadets had a sister that mysteriously went AWOL.
Yes. And we don't know what happened to her. Now, I am gonna actually, you know what? No, I'm gonna save that. I'll mention it to you guys privately after the stream, but something that I don't think would translate really well live. But anyways, getting back to what we were talking about. Um, the whole reason that they're even in there is so that Ezra can steal this decoder from the desk of Agent Callus, which eventually he is successful doing. But along the way, he ends up picking up two friends along with him. One friend, like you already said, Nate, that's looking for his sister who vanished from the school, and the other who just kind of gets picked up along the way and is convinced to help them out. And by the end of it, the one dude who lost his sister chooses to stay behind while Ezra and the other dude make their escape. So what did you guys think of that?
um I felt it was a little weak, a little maybe. Um and I don't know if I can explain my reasoning behind that.
Okay.
I guess it was weak because um you have this walker that's escaping, right? Or just going rogue and shooting stuff. And
Yes.
you know there is at least one adult trooper in there, the operator, to and then you have what was it, two cadets that went in there,
Three
right?
Mhm.
cadets.
Th- three? Oh yeah, three. Yes, that's right. Um and then he wrecks and they wreck it anyway, or it falls over and so forth, stops the door up from closing all the way. And they escape, and then there's just the one guy standing there shooting. It seems a little bit of a stretch to think that Imperial officers are going to run up, see him shooting, and then automatically assume he did what he said he was doing as opposed to helping them escape.
Yeah, I can definitely
It's,
see where you're coming from.
it seems to me a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
One thing before I stop though, who does it remind you of when it pans when we see Kanan and Hera in the ship waiting to hear about Ezra's status, and Kanan's all antsy, and he's a little bit anxious and all that stuff. Especially talking about Ezra. Who does it remind you of? Another Jedi Master when his
Obi-Wan?
apprentice was when his Padawan was in danger, and he just really wanted to get him or her out
Oh,
several
Annie
Anakin.
times.
Pope Annie.
Exactly. That's
Mhm.
I was watching that. I thought, man, this is Anakin vibes all day long right here.
Okay. I can definitely see where you're coming from with that. Nate, any insight from you?
I thought it was definitely a bit of a stretch, and I feel like the ISB completely dropped the ball on this.
Yes. Yes,
Because aren't
they
they supposed
absolutely
to?
did.
Because aren't they supposed to be constantly monitoring like the facial expressions and everything, all kinds of sensors, and monitoring everything you say, even if it's quietly under your breath.
Yeah. I
So
mean, we see them doing this in Andor.
so it really does surprise me that it was the I guess commandant and a few of the other uh, teachers there were the ones that caught on, and not some ISB agent like Callus beforehand.
Right. Not to mention, it was kind of funny that the one dude was like, "Here you go, Agent Callus, a receipt for all of your used pod racer parts." As if Callus would be even remotely interested in pod racing.
Nah, he doesn't seem like the
Yeah.
kind of person to be into that.
Also, I know I showed this meme last week, but I'm going to show it again. The two officers that were in charge of the training were these guys.
Yep.
I'm trying to figure out how it is that they managed to get duped in that situation and then managed to get put in charge of education of the next generation of the Empire.
Well, no one ever accused the Empire of being the brightest except for Thrawn.
See, that is one of my problems with this series. It's the Empire. All the villains that make up the Empire should be Agent Callus caliber or more intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
If when they're comical, that adds to like the lightheartedness of the show, and you can't take it seriously. It's like, oh,
That
this
is
this
true.
guy's a total idiot. He's gonna get walked all the rebels are gonna walk all over him. So you can't take it seriously, and it doesn't draw you in as much. So these two guys, characters that need to just not have been in there in the first place, or write them much better.
Agreed. So, final score for this one, I'm gonna give it 3 out of 5. Nate, what about you?
It's definitely a middle of the road one. Like, okay, still saying the Empire is not the greatest, but yet they have a very interesting training scheme, and that it might not just be more than training. That intrigued me, but it's like, okay, some of the execution could be better if the bad guys seemed a little bit more intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, 3 out of 5.
Okay. So, Ian, what about you?
I'm going 2.5.
2.5? Okay. And Mary Lanning is giving this one a 7 out of 10. Okay.
She's very generous.
I can see where you're coming from with that.
I think she broke our scale.
It's okay if she wants to go out of 10, that is fine. I save rankings out of 10 for movies. I just do out of 5 for TV shows, but that's just me. So anyways, that is it for these 4 episodes. I'll real quick remind you guys that next week we're talking about episodes 7, 8, 9, and 10. And in that 10th episode, by the way, that's the one where we first find the Jedi Temple on Lothal. So, seeing what happens with that is going to be very, very interesting. So, I believe with that, let's go ahead and sign off for the night. So thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. And just remember, everyone, the Force is family. See you guys later.